the difference. Today's THV at 6.
Good evening, I'm Liz Massey. Tonight on today's THV at 6, a big break in the West Memphis 3 case. We have team coverage and legal experts to break it all down.
And I'm Craig O'Neill. Little Rock police investigating what they call one of their most interesting homicide cases ever. A man found dead in the river days after his car was found burned in Little Rock.
I'm Wes Moore. Coming up in sports, Ronnie Wingo and Dennis Johnson are getting a chance to shine. Bobby Petrino talks about the running back's progress in a bit.
And I'm Ed Buckner in the Weather Garden. A relatively cool day today, but we'll be pushing 100 toward the weekend. That forecast coming up in a bit.
We begin tonight with our top story, ongoing developments in a last-minute hearing for the West Memphis 3. It is one of the most talked about murder cases in Arkansas history. The West Memphis 3 case has dominated news headlines for 18 years. 3 8-year-old boys beaten and murdered. 3 teenagers, Damian Eccles, Jason Baldwin, and Jesse Miskelly, convicted. But could they soon walk free? THV's Ashley Blackstone has been following this case for several years. She joins me now with the very latest.
You know, Liz, this story is really developing by the minute. We're continuing to get information into our newsroom. It's kind of been a little chaos around here this morning. CBS affiliate WREG in Memphis has been reporting this afternoon that all 3 men are going to admit guilt in this crime. We don't know how much guilt or what they're going to confess to, and that 2 of the 3 men are going to walk free, including Damian Eccles. Now, one of their sources is one of the victims' fathers, and his name is Steve Branch. Now, WREG spoke with him this afternoon, and he says that letting the men out would be a sad day for the justice system. He says, quote, here it is, what kind of a sad day it is for the justice system that's going to allow a convicted child murderer to be set free simply by admitting that he killed the child. Now, while he believes the men are guilty, Stevie's mother believes they're innocent. Branch said his information is coming from someone in the justice system. However, he will not say who. Now, no one in the justice system is going to confirm what is happening tomorrow. There's a gag order in place. However, we do know that the 3 men convicted will meet with a judge privately tomorrow morning, and this will be the first time that the 3 men have all been together since 1993. Now, immediately following that at 11 a.m., there will be a public court session. We're told that the victims as well as the defendants' families are all expected to be present, and that is when we expect to hear the reason behind this hearing. Now, you may recall an evidentiary hearing is set for December to discuss whether or not to grant the men a new trial. Court officials tell me as of now that will still happen. To date, none of the DNA gathered in this case has matched any of the defendants. I have interviewed Eccles twice, most recently last year. He lives in a 9x6 cell and rarely comes out, rarely sees people. So I asked him last year about the potential of one day being in court again. Take a listen.
It's really stressful because I'm not used to things like that. You know, I've been in the same place for 17 and a half years, so I'm not used to traveling or anything like that. So it's a really big thing to have to try to adapt and adjust to that, to being outside these walls, and at the same time try to take in everything that's going on in the courtroom.
And you can hear much more from my interviews with Damian Eccles by clicking on this story at today's THV.com. And Liz, of course, I will be in the courtroom tomorrow in Jonesboro covering this story. You can follow us on the web, on air, as well as Twitter.
Now, Ashley, you also talked to the Department of Correction officials today. All 3 men already out of prison.
Yes, they have told me by phone this afternoon that they were all taken by Craighead Sheriff's Departments this afternoon. They left in separate vans, and they do not know what they were wearing. They don't know if they were wearing street clothes or jail clothes, but they took all of their belongings out of their cell. I asked if that is unusual, and the spokesperson said yes, it is. Not unprecedented, but unusual. And then I asked, well, is it rare for a death row inmate to take all of their personal belongings out of the cell? And she said yes, very.
A lot of developments in this case. You also tried to get a hold of Damian Eccles' wife, Lori Davis, but normally you're able to get a hold of her just like that, but now
yes, she has not returned my phone calls, which yes, it's very rare. She's always gotten back to me right away. So makes me wonder, what is going on. Of course, a lot more developments. Hopefully we'll hear something tomorrow.
All right, Ashley, thank you so much, and keep us updated. Now, this has been a case that has gained national attention since the 8-year-olds Christopher Byers, Stevie Branch, and Michael Moore's bodies were found in 1993. Here's a little background on the case because it is complicated. John Byers, Christopher's father, reported the boys missing at around 7 p.m. the night of May 5th. Their bodies were found the next day near a creek. They were nude, hog-tied with their own shoelaces. Autopsies later revealed Byers died of blood loss. According to prosecutors, attacked with a knife and castrated. Moore and Branch had drowned. Police had a number of suspects, but eventually honed in on Eccles, who was 18, Miss Kelly 17, and Baldwin 16. They were seen as outsiders who dressed in black, and police believe the killings were part of a satanic ritual. Miss Kelly reportedly confessed to police and implicated his friends, but later recanted. It was later determined he had a mental disability. Now, less than a year later, a jury convicted Baldwin and Miss Kelly and sentenced them to life in prison. Eccles was sent to death row. The appeals began immediately. Tests later revealed the injuries to Byers' body were likely caused by an animal as his body laid in the woods. And the first big break for the so-called West Memphis 3 came in 2007 when new evidence was tested for DNA, none tying Eccles, Miss Kelly, or Baldwin to the crime. Instead, it matched Terry Hobbs, Stevie Branch's stepfather. Because of that new evidence and reported juror misconduct during their trials, the state Supreme Court said all three men should have a hearing determining if they should get new trials. Joining me now to talk more about the legal process and what this could all mean is Felicia Epps, law professor at UALR Bowen's School of Law. Felicia, thank you for being here. What are the possibilities regarding this hearing tomorrow?
Well, it's possible, of course, that there is some new evidence of some type. Here the judge wants to have part of this in his chambers, meaning there's going to be no public there, so there could be some privacy issues of potential witnesses, other DNA. Anything could be going on that he just wants to have in his chambers away from the public eye, and then moving into the courtroom. It just could be just a variety of things.
I mean, is there a chance that these three men could walk free tomorrow?
I guess I see that as a remote possibility, but certainly remember we have a hearing scheduled for December at which the judge is supposed to determine or will determine whether there's sufficient evidence that if they went to trial they would be acquitted. There's a good likelihood of being acquitted. It could be that we've already kind of assessed that from the state's point of view, and that there's something else going on here, such as having made some decisions even at this point that we're not going to go forward with it. However, all of that's speculative, and I try to avoid doing it, so I'm not going to say any more about that.
If they could walk free, what would have to happen? Would the circuit judge in the state, would they have to all come to agreement?
Well, basically it would be that the state would have to decide that they didn't want to go forward with the trial, even if it was to happen. Sometimes in an initial assessment of a case, even just a regular criminal case, the state looks at, well, can we prove this beyond a reasonable doubt? Because that's the test at a criminal trial, and you have to be able to meet that burden. So sometimes what happens is the state concludes we can't do it, and therefore we don't go forward with charges or with the trial.
Have you seen anything like this before happen?
No, I think this whole case is very unique, and I'm really anxious to see what is going to happen tomorrow.
Is it surprising to you that the victims' families, defendant families, everyone's going to be there?
To me, that signals that there is something significant about to happen. So I think that is something unique that's going on, and we'll just have to wait and see exactly how things play out tomorrow.
All right. Well, Felicia Epps, thank you so much for joining us and giving us some perspective on that. Of course, we will be there tomorrow to bring you all the updates. THV's Ashley Blackstone been following this story for a very long time. She'll be at the hearing. We will also bring you all the details throughout the day on today's THV, today's THV.com, and on our Facebook and Twitter accounts. You can also sign up for breaking news text alerts on our website. Craig?
Good morning. This is Stephanie Bryan interrupting your regularly scheduled program. Breaking news today in a case that has gained national attention now for the last 18 years. The case now dubbed as the West Memphis 3. A judge this morning ruled that the men accused of murdering 3 8-year-old boys back in 1993 can go free. And a deal worked out with the state. Damian Eccles, Jesse Miss Kelly, and Jason Baldwin all pleaded guilty, and in exchange they are being let go. They're processing paperwork right now. No more word on when they will actually be let go. You might recall they were each convicted of killing Stevie Branch, Christopher Byers, and Michael Moore. Prosecutors said in a satanic ritual. They've been in prison since 1994. Miss Kelly and Baldwin serving life sentences, Eccles on death row. But they've been fighting their convictions for more than a decade, all along claiming their innocence. They've argued police contaminated evidence, jury misconduct at their trial, and that they've uncovered new DNA evidence not linking to them, but instead tying Terry Hobbs, Stevie Branch's stepfather, to the crime scene. They were scheduled to have an evidentiary hearing in just a little over 3 months, where a judge could have ordered they all three get new trials. While many still believe they should remain behind bars, several of the victims' family members, including Christopher Byers' father, Mark, said outside the courthouse this morning that Eccles, Miss Kelly, and Baldwin were made to be pawns. He added police once even considered him a suspect. Eccles' mom, Pam Hutchison, added she feels bad for the victims and their families.
It's really been a bad injustice situation, and I feel bad for them because I don't think that justice will ever be served in this case.
Hutchison added she can't explain her emotions at this moment. The first thing she says she'll do when she sees Damien is tell him that she loves him and that she's here for him. Family members of each of the victims, as well as Eccles, Miss Kelly, and Baldwin's family, they're all in Jonesboro. A press conference is scheduled to be held at any time now, but we will have more information on that. We've been told that we will get to hear from the families, or if not, it will involve only attorneys in this case. You can see it all as it unfolds. We'll bring it back to you once again. Court is over at this time. All three pleaded guilty and will be set free. No word on when that will actually happen. Of course, THV's Ashley Blackstone and BJ Steed are both there in Jonesboro with live coverage. We'll have more coming up today at today's THV at noon. Back to your regularly scheduled program. And as you see there, we're just waiting to hear from the three, trying to figure out if they will actually speak or just take questions from reporters. Damien Eccles, one of the first things that he said, hello, I'm Damien Eccles, 36 years old, and I'm being released today for a crime that I did not commit. Jesse Miss Kelly basically saying the same thing, maintaining their innocence. However, Jason Baldwin decided that he did not want to say anything. There's Jeff Rosenzweig, one of the defense attorneys. Joining me here in the studio is Felicia Epps, UALR professor, and we were talking. You've been watching all this go through. You says, no surprise there, what Scott Ellington had said. I guess there's a little pause there from the family members.
Oh, okay. No surprise in the sense that this is really a way to serve the interest of the state and of the defense, because this was a risky proposition from either standpoint. As Mr. Ellington pointed out, there was certainly a risk once there was a new trial that a new jury, and 3 new juries, as he pointed out, might acquit all 3 defendants. So from the state standpoint, even though, as he said, they would have prosecuted it to the fullest, there was a risk that they would be, all 3 would be acquitted. So this type of a deal works everything out from the state standpoint.
Happened. Hey, Mark Byers, good to see you. Ashley, we've spoken before.
Yes, we have.
How are you doing? What is going through your mind?
Some disappointment and some gladness. You know, I'm glad that they're free. I'm disappointed that it was on the grounds that it had to be on, to have guilty stamped on your head. I still think that it is a terrible, terrible thing in today's time that you get convicted of a crime you didn't do, then 18 years later you come to court and lie about a crime to get out. That just is crazy.
John, we spoke on the phone yesterday, and you told me one of your biggest concerns is that your child's killer is still out there, yes, and they're not doing anything about it. Your thoughts?
Well, at this point in time, the state might not be doing anything about it, but that does not mean that there's not other people involved in this case, because a lot of people know who is guilty. Their DNA was there, amongst many other things, physical evidence, circumstantial evidence, and it all points to one person.
John, for those who might not be familiar with it.
The Difference. Today's THV at 6.
My name is Damien Eccles. I am 36 years old and released today from death row for a crime I did not commit.
What's happening today isn't right. It's not right.
It was a blessing to see them and know that they'd be going home.
These kids are absolutely innocent.
Can't live our lives in fear.
Well, I want to hug him, tell him that I love him.
Still very much in shock.
I'm obviously ready to get out of here.
We begin tonight with today's big story, an emotional day in Arkansas as 3 men dubbed the West Memphis 3 are free after pleading guilty to the murders of 3 boys.
This is a case that has captured the nation. And
one we have been following extensively for you throughout the day. It started this morning with a private hearing with the men convicted of killing 3 West Memphis boys in 1993. Damian Eccles sentenced to death row. Jason Baldwin and Jesse Miskelly serving life in prison.
Shortly after that, a public hearing where a judge announced an agreement between the prosecutor and the West Memphis 3.
Eccles, Baldwin, and Miskelly pleaded guilty so they could walk free today.
Your Honor, I am innocent of these charges, but I'm entering an Alfred guilty plea today based on the advice of my counsel and my understanding that it's in my best interest to do so given the entire record of the case.
They used an Alford plea, a legal maneuver that lets them maintain their innocence while acknowledging prosecutors likely have enough evidence to convict them.
Judge David Laser sentenced them to 18 years and 78 days in prison, time served. Prosecutor Scott Ellington says while he believes the men are guilty, this brings this case to a close.
These individuals have spent 18 years in prison. I hope and pray that they have become rehabilitated.
Ellington said he believes if the men were granted a new trial, they likely would have been acquitted. Attorney General Dustin McDaniel said Ellington made the deal on his own and he didn't have any say in it. TV's Ashley Blackstone and BJ Steed have been in Jonesboro all day at these hearings. And Ashley, we'll start with you, and she's been following this case for years. Very emotional day. What can you tell us about the men and how they reacted?
It was a very emotional press conference in the courtroom of this basement of this courthouse today. The first time that the 3 men have been together since 1993. As you just mentioned, it was the defense that actually approached the state about this plea deal. Of course, the state took that plea deal, and the reason for that, as you just mentioned, is likely they would have all been acquitted. And this is why we were told that many of the witnesses in this case have likely passed away now, or have passed away rather now, and also many have changed their story since 1993. Here is more now from those 3 men. Take a look.
We haven't really had much time to talk about anything because we've been in separate places at the jail. And
all together now for the first time in 18 years. Surrounded by the media, Damian Eccles, Jesse Miskelly, and Jason Baldwin explained why they're innocent, but decided to change their plea to guilty.
They're not out there trying to find who really murdered those boys. And I did not want to take the deal from the get-go. However, they're trying to kill Damian, and sometimes you just got to fight the gun to save somebody.
To acknowledge what he did, that he did want to keep fighting. He didn't want to take this deal in the beginning. And I recognize and acknowledge that he did do it almost entirely for me. Thank you.
Mr. Braga.
This agreement comes just 5 months before a scheduled hearing to determine if the men should be granted a new trial in light of the new DNA evidence, none of which matches the men.
Does anyone believe that if the state had even the slightest continuing conviction that they were guilty, that they would let these men free today? It would have never happened.
I have no reason to believe that there was anyone else involved in the homicide of these three children but the 3 defendants who pled guilty today. And that's why we moved forward. And so as far as the state's concerned today, and I speak for the state as the prosecutor for the 2nd Judicial District, I believe that this case is closing.
Jesse Miskelly now worried about life outside prison.
Even when you're in prison, it goes on every day. You have to worry about your own safety.
Arrested as teenagers, walking free now as grown men, with much more of this story likely to still come.
And we are told if the men violate their 10-year probation, they will likely be sent back to prison for a lengthy period of time. A lot of people tonight wondering where the 3 men are. We're told that the party has moved to Memphis, Tennessee, where they are celebrating tonight with West Memphis 3 supporters, their families, as well as several celebrities that are here in the area, including Natalie Maines of the Dixie Chicks and Eddie Vedder of Pearl Jam, who were both in court today. Another big part of this story has been the victims' families, and for that we turn to BJ Steed, who has been here covering that. BJ, there were several outbursts in the courtroom today from victims' family members.
Exactly, and it's been quite a day. You could probably tell us more about those outbursts, but as you mentioned, quite a day. Many of the people, we haven't heard from for years because of that gag order, but today, just because of that guilty plea does not mean that everybody believes that there was justice served here. I want to point first to Mark Byers, which is the father of Christopher Byers, one of the victims back there in 1993. He said that he supports the West Memphis Three, but he does not believe that they indeed did it. He believes there's still another killer out there, so that guilty plea still haunting him. Again, Steve Branch, father of Stevie Branch, another one of those victims, he spoke today. He actually said this has set a precedence. The judge set a precedence by granting these guys their freedom today, because he doesn't believe that it should have been that way. Also, it was hard to catch up with those three today. We had all the doors. We had 3 doors they were coming out of, going in. A lot of trickery going on there.
It was like organized chaos, pretty much it was.
Exactly. So we didn't really have a chance to catch up with them afterwards. We did catch up with one. One surprising thing was the support, the amount of support for the West Memphis Three. We all knew it was out there, but I didn't know to this capacity. There was plenty of supporters out there for them, cheering for them as they exited today.
Holding signs, wearing T-shirts. They had many interesting things to say to you, just relieved that today's finally come.
Exactly. There was one supporter actually said he felt like he was once in the shoes of Damian Eccles, and he showed much support for him and the West Memphis Three.
Okay, BJ Steed, thank you so much. And I was in the courtroom, several outbursts today. One from Steve Branch, who BJ just spoke about. He is one of the victims' fathers. He was actually escorted out of the courtroom for making several comments to the judge, including this is a miscarriage of justice for the entire state of Arkansas. Other outbursts saying baby killer to the defendants as well. All right, so we are told that 2 documentaries are expected to be coming out this fall, highlighting the entire case. So you might want to watch for those as well. And we're also told that one of the victim's stepfathers, Terry Hobbs, who has also been a key player in this whole story, he is writing a book. He tells reporters today that should be released in the near future as well. So a very busy day today. Lots of media outlets still here at the courthouse in Jonesboro. We'll send it back to you guys.
Haven't heard the last of it. Thank you, Ashley. We, of course, have many resources for you on our website. All of the press conferences and emotional interviews with family members are in these stories on our website, today'sthv.com. Okay, let's then send things over to Liz, who has a special guest with a more in-depth look at the legal perspective of all this.
Well, Felicia Epps has been here with us throughout the day, giving us perspective on this developing story. She's a law professor at the Bowen School of Law. Thank you so much for being with us again. You're Felicia, welcome. Okay, we kept hearing all day this Alford plea. Explain what the Alford plea is.
Well, the simplest way to think about it is that it's a way for the defendant basically to acknowledge there's the evidence out there the state has against me. I'm still not guilty, but I'm going to plead guilty because I know that's out there, and there's a risk for me if I go to trial.
Is this rare? A lot of people are saying it's rare, but how rare is it to use this?
Well, I don't know how to kind of quantify that. I would say it is rare in the sense that usually this is either cut and dry. The defense believes that if we go to trial, I'm going to be acquitted, and they refuse to plead guilty, or the state feels that we have such overwhelming evidence, there's no reason for us to accept an arrangement like that.
Were you surprised today to hear that they were using the Alford plea in this case?
In one sense, I was, because the way I kind of saw this playing out as we go to December, we have this hearing where it looked like the judge was going to come to the conclusion they get a new trial. And they get a new trial, there seems like there's enough things that have come up over the years, evidence that could really be used in court that they could use on their behalf, where they'd be walking out with an acquittal. But the bottom line is, by doing this today, it's over with from both sides' perspectives, or at least from the state's perspective. And they get to go home.
Is there any chance that they could ever go back to jail, or these charges be brought up again?
Well, as we heard the prosecuting attorney discuss today, they have 10 years basically, where if they do something, some criminal offense, they'll come back and assess that, and they might face additional jail time. But absent something like that happening, and I would think if you've been in prison for 18 years, you're certainly going to stay as far away from any type of illegal activity as you possibly could. that won't happen.
How often does someone go from death row to being released just like this?
I think that, well, in one sense, we think of it as happening instantly, but really they've been fighting for this over the past 18 years. So I think it did happen quickly in one sense, but in one sense it's been a while. So not that unusual after years and years of litigation and trying to get things done that you have a result.
Do you think this is the end of this case?
I think that in terms of anything else going on in court, that it's the end. It did sound like, from what Mr. Eccles said, that they're going to use their own means to investigate in an attempt to completely exonerate themselves and to perhaps find out who did this, because they are maintaining their innocence.
What's the thing that stands out to you about this case the most?
Really, what stands out to me the most is that but for the HBO documentary and the media attention that it brought and the celebrity involvement, quite honestly, Damien Eccles would likely have already been executed, and the other two would be in prison for the rest of their lives. So in one sense, we don't think of media attention happening like that. Usually we're concerned about it preventing things and information getting out to the jurors who might hold it somehow against the defense. But in this instance, actually the media attention worked to their benefit. And I think about others who may be in this situation who don't have an HBO documentary and don't get that kind of attention brought to their case.
All right, Felicia Epps, thank you so much for spending the entire day with us and giving us perspective on this story.
You're quite welcome.
Thank you very much. Craig?